Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I rise to speak on this appropriation bill. Let me be clear from the outset, the Coalition won't oppose or delay the passage of these bills, and while we don't support all of the policies and programs funded in this budget, these appropriation bills are necessary legislative mechanisms to fund decisions that the government has already made. But just because we're not opposing these bills does not mean that we will remain silent on the reckless spending and bad choices that sit behind them. These appropriation bills authorise a further $12.7 billion in spending, $9.1 billion for ordinary services, $3.5 billion for non-ordinary services, and just over $9 million for parliamentary departments, on top of what was already a big spending budget. In the broader context, let's reflect on the fact that this week we've seen $15 billion siphoned away in CFMEU, cartel, mismanagement and corruption. We've got a $1.2 trillion debt bomb gestating under this government, and a whole range of inappropriate expenditure, mismanagement and poor decision-making that we see on a daily basis. And while families in my electorate of Monash are being asked to tighten their belts, many of those families have to make weekly decisions on whether to buy groceries, put food on the table for their family or pay their bills on time. This government is not living by the standard that it preaches to ordinary Australians. While this debate matters, I want to go into some examination of the flagrant spending that we are seeing under this government, because it is getting worse. It is putting Australian families at a disadvantage. It is hurting regional communities like mine, and it's also putting us well behind the eight ball on our international competitiveness. We've got record levels of revenue in this country, and may I add, Madam Deputy Speaker, a lot of that is thanks to our mining and resources sector, who fund the roads that we drive on, the hospitals that we rely on and the schools that educate our young people. We've got record levels of revenue, and in fact in the 2024-25 year, the Commonwealth raised $717 billion in receipts. That's 25.9% of GDP, the highest level in 25 years. Yet, despite this river of revenue flowing into Canberra, Australians across the country, but particularly in electorates like mine, are staring down strong deficits. Why? Because record revenue is being completely outstripped by record spending and record spending growth, by a government that treats taxpayers' hard-earned money like a credit card with no limit. You cannot run a household budget like this. You would have your shutters pulled down if you're a small business that operated like this. And yet again, the standard the government expects of ordinary Australians is not adhered to by its own management. The government is now the highest spending government outside of the pandemic in 40 years. Spending is growing at 4 times the rate of the economy, and national debt is heading towards $1.2 trillion. That is a debt bomb that generations of Australians still yet to come will be paying back. They are at a disadvantage before they even get a start in life. Since Labor came to office, spending is up by $160 billion. That is, when you think about it, about $16,000 for every household in this country. And the government has added $100 billion to the national debt in just a single term. Madam Deputy Speaker, this is not restraint, this is recklessness. And the consequences of that recklessness are showing up where Australians feel it most, at the checkout, on their power bills, in their rent and on their mortgage repayments. We've had 13 interest rate rises under this government. I'm not surprised. I would not be surprised if we see a 14th, which the RBA have left the door open to. And when you listen to people like Philip Lowe, highly respected person who served previously as the RBA governor, he has said that inflation is a homegrown problem and that inflation is being driven by government debt. On the 28th of January, the ABS confirmed that inflation rose to 3.8% in 12 months to December. Trimmed inflation is at 3.4%. Both of these figures are well outside the RBA's target band. After nearly 4 years of Labor, Australians are paying more for the basics. Insurance has gone up 39%. I go around my electorate of Monash. I speak to particularly community groups and not-for-profits, those sporting teams and clubs that put so much back into our community that live off the smell of an oily rag. And one of their chief complaints is the cost of insurance continuing to rise. It puts them at such a disadvantage. They work very, very hard to live within the constraints of a very tight budget. But these things have real impacts on communities like mine. Energy has gone up by 38%. How many times, Member for Mallee, have we heard the government talk about their $275 bill reduction? I think
Too many times.
We're up to nearly 100 times now. So energy's gone up 38%. We've seen rent go up 22%. I had a very sad story during the election where a lady came up to me outside one of the little IGAs that I was doing a listening post, and she said her son, who was a truck driver, he's a single dad with a few kids, he was nearly homeless because, and I won't mention the town, but in West Gippsland, he had to couch surf with friends because he could not get a rental property. And that was impacting his kids and the broader family. He moved back in with his mum for a period of time. But there are very real consequences for Australians who are doing it tough, who work hard, who do the right thing, who squirrel money away, who don't spend recklessly. They are hurting. Health is up 18%. How many times have we heard this Prime Minister say, all you need is your Medicare card? All you need is your Medicare card. Well, health is up 18%. And your Medicare card's not paying for that. People's credit cards are. Their savings are. Education's up 17%. And I thank Trudy, who wrote to me recently about the living away from home allowance that is the same amount for kids living in metro and city areas as regional kids. Her children are doing it really tough. To the tradie who wrote to me and said he wanted to get some additional training and education to, as he put it, better support his family. And he said the cost of supplies and reading materials for the course that he was doing on construction, that was the real cost killer for him. These are real people, real stories, and they're really hurting. Food's up 16%. Had a lady come out of the Coles supermarket in Druin during the election campaign. She held up 2 bags of groceries and said, "Mary, I can't get 2 bags of groceries for under $100 anymore." It's just going up and up. And these are not luxuries, they're essentials. They're everyday costs that families and pensioners and small businesses cannot afford. I spoke with a group of financial counsellors in my electorate recently, and we were talking about shoplifting from supermarkets on the increase. And it's not luxury items, it's not entertainment items, it's meat, it's fruit, vegetables, essentials, because people are in desperate circumstances turning to desperate measures. It's not some global mystery, this inflation problem. Australia's inflation rate is now higher than comparable economies like the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, the Eurozone. And economists have been clear about why, and I'll quote AMP's Diana Messina, who has said the government has been directly adding to inflation through record public spending. Shane Oliver, well-known and well-credentialed economic commentator, has said many of the drivers of inflation relate to government spending. HSBC's Paul Bloxham has said the key driver of inflation is not private demand, but strong public demand driven by government spending. So it could not be clearer. And I'll go back to the Reserve Bank governor. Recently, there's been a lot of attention on her comments. Michelle Bullock at at Senate estimates recently and again before the House Economic Committee, where the Governor confirmed that excessive aggregate demand, including public spending, is contributing to inflationary pressures. And what happens when inflation stays high? Interest rates stay higher for longer. The government is forcing the hand here of decisions that are being made on interest rates, and it is hurting everyday Australians. The Prime Minister and the Treasurer are very quick to take credit, have been quick to take credit when interest rates come down. They need to take responsibility for the fact that their spending decisions are making life harder for people in my electorate of Monash trying to pay off a house, or if they're a young person trying to get a foot in the door and buy their own home. And while I'm speaking about my electorate, I will turn to some other points of this appropriation bill. And in that context, I'd love to give a shout out to some local wineries in my electorate. We in Monash, I love to say, we have world-beating products made by world-leading people. We've got the Phillip Island Winery, the Gertie's Winery, Purple Hen in Rill, Harmon Wines at Wattlebank, Dirty Three Wines in Inverloch, and the Gippsland Wine Company in Loch. These producers are not just businesses, they are part of the fabric of our region. And on behalf of the electorate of Monash, I say thank you for employing people, for bringing people to our region, for making world-class products and making all of us so proud of the very fine things that we grow, make and manufacture in the Monash electorate. Across South Gippsland and Bass Coast, we've got wineries like Waratah Hills Vineyard in Fish Creek, Fleet Wines in Leongatha, Bass River at Glen Forbes, Silverwaters Vineyard at San Remo, Wild Dog Winery in Warrigal, Brandy Creek Estate. And they continue to showcase the very best of regional wineries anywhere in Australia. They're family-run, small to medium producers. They employ locals, they support tourism, they provide hospitality experiences to draw visitors to our town who spend money in our cafes and shops and accommodation providers. They continue to grow the identity and reputation of the Gippsland region as a premium food and wine destination. But these businesses are being squeezed from all sides. Higher energy costs, rising freight and transport expenses, increasing insurance premiums, labour shortages, declining discretionary spending as families tighten their belts. These businesses are resilient, but those banks of resilience are depleting, and the power bills keep coming, and the compliance and red tape keeps rising, and many of these businesses are struggling to keep their head above water. While this government pours billions into poorly targeted spending, it's already failed to provide meaningful relief to industries like the wine industry that are under pressure from inflation, cost of living pressures and weakening consumer demand. While local wineries, like any small business sector, are not asking for special treatment, they're not asking for a handout, they're just asking for a fair go to employ people and put back into their communities. They want inflation brought under control, they want interest rates to come down, and they want a tax system that encourages them to invest, employ and grow. Instead, they're getting a government that borrows more, spends more, taxes more. For small businesses who tell me they've never worked harder and faced more risk and red tape, it's a really tough time right now to be an Australian small business owner. And I want to say to every small business owner out there, right across Australia, from the Monash electorate beyond, I am with you. The Coalition is with you. We see the hours that you put in, whether it's servicing customers after hours, employing young people, sponsoring local sporting teams and community groups, getting involved in service clubs. We see what you do for the community. We back you and we'll be there for you every single time.